ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only We Too Deep. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy We Too Deep, and we are back with another episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. Excuse me. We got a really interesting episode for you all tonight. I think it's interesting. I think we got some topics that I have picked out to give my opinions on. I think it'll be a very interesting episode for sure. As always, I would love you guys' feedback. Let me just go ahead and get this out of the way. Like, share, subscribe. Whether it's on the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Click your subscribe or your follow button. Leave reviews. I know on Spotify you can leave comments. I'll be honest, I don't really check Spotify that often to check those comments. Where I would prefer your comments are either on the YouTube video, go to the YouTube channel, and subscribe, like, share. You can leave your comments there, or more preferably inside the Discord, which is linked in the description. Join the Discord, join the discussion, and as we talk about, various different aspects of the sports world, of pop culture, and different things in the community. I would prefer the comments to be put in the Discord as part of the conversation. And so let's just get to business here. Let's start with this first topic. And this first topic is, I don't know if you guys are following the World Cup. I'm not a big soccer fan. I'm just genuinely, I'm checking every now and then. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, go Team America, and cheer for that. But generally speaking, not necessarily interested in the World Cup. What I'm more interested in, though, is because the World Cup is being held in America this year, we have a swath of visitors in the country this year. And no more important or viral than this guy Freddie on X. And this guy Freddie, he's from Germany. He never shows his face in the pictures. We don't know what he looks like. He's come from Germany, and he's making sort of a road trip or a experience out of coming to America. And he's been in the South, and he's tried things like Buc-ee's and different Southern staples as he's driving from location to location and stuff like that, making a big vacation out of this. He's even gotten on the radar of Ella Langley, big country music pop star, probably the most popular female artist in the world right now is Ella Langley, at least in the sphere that I'm in. But I would argue that Ella Langley is probably the most popular artist in the world right now. And Ella Langley invited him backstage to one of the shows in Oklahoma City a few weeks ago. He got to meet her, hang out at the concert, just things that normal people don't get to experience. And this thing is just taken off. And people are just in love with this German guy from Germany, comes to America and is having a great time. And so the initial response to this, the initial response to this was just like, look at how great America is. And the sort of irony of the people in Europe who consistently poo on America for all these different things, but then they actually come here and they experience the American experience and just absolutely fall in love with it. And they understand like why America is the way that America is. And it just shows the greatness of America and what makes America the best place to be. Right? Because you're not going to find something like Buc-ee's. That's not even conceivable to find in Germany. And so I just... and then all of a sudden, I saw this shift. And I've even had this thought myself. So I have two opinions. The first opinion is that initial thought I just perceived. My first thing was, doesn't this show the greatness of America? That we are genuinely the best place in the world to be, the best country in the world. And leading up to our 250th anniversary, and morale's kind of low, and the American citizens are genuinely more likely to hate on America than actual people who are visiting, and just seeing the greatness of what America is. But then a second thought hit my head. It hit my conscience, because I'm always enjoy but verify, or believe but verify. Like I'm not naive enough to think that this could be something else. That what is the probability that some random German is taking his vacation? I don't know if you guys know this. In Germany or in Europe, really, they get like a 2-month vacation where they don't have to go to work, and it's sort of like, I don't know if it's paid or not, but it's sort of expected in their culture, where there's like 2 months out of the year where they just don't have to go to work, which is why these people can come over and just take this time, right? And so, like, what's the probability that some random German comes over here, starts posting on social media, and it goes viral? Just sort of organically. It's not a 0% chance. It's not a 0% chance. But my mind started thinking, what's the probability that this was a marketing ploy, a marketing scheme that was sort of planned from the get-go? Just sort of get people sucked into different things. Now, I don't know who would be doing this type of marketing, or maybe it's a way to get followers. And so the account was created, I believe, in 2023. The World Cup was awarded to America, I believe, in 2019. So there was some time in between to where you could probably set up this account, make it at least seem somewhat interesting, get somewhat of a following, but not too big of a following, and then blow this thing up during the World Cup to where it's all people talk about. I don't actually think that that's the case, though. I think more than likely this is just something organic that turned into something this guy didn't actually think would happen. I'm just going to be completely honest. I don't think it's fake by any means in terms of like AI generated. If it was AI, they wouldn't cover the face. If this was a marketing scheme, I feel like they wouldn't hide the face either. I think he's genuinely trying to hide his identity as best as he can, for safety reasons. And that to me tells me that this is organic and real, and I love everything about it. But I want to know your guys' take on this. What do you believe? Is this organic, or is this sort of manufactured marketing ploy to boost this account. I don't know. What do you guys think on that? The second thing that goes along with that is just the World Cup in and of itself. Now, like I said earlier, I do not care about the World Cup. I don't care about soccer. I don't care who wins. If it's America, I'll be like, yay, America won, but then we'll move on, right? This is different than like hockey, which to me, like when America won the Olympics, like that was a big deal to me because I enjoy hockey. When America wins like the World Classic of hockey or whatever we have every few years, that's a big deal. And so I don't care about soccer at all. But I will say, if there's one country that like I want to win, and it probably there's a really small probability this happens, but Scotland, what has happened with the Tartan Army and everything as they took over the city of Boston, and now they're taking over Miami, because their team's playing in Miami now. What has happened since the Scots took over here? And essentially, like, they literally drunk Boston dry. Like, they were running out of beer in the city. Right? Just amazing. Just like the visuals. I've talked to people who was in Boston while they were there, and seen videos. Insane. They took over the city and just created like an atmosphere that was fun to be around. From what I heard, chants that people just can't stopping. No party, no Scotland. No party, no Scotland. They do it in the no Scotland, no party. No, you know the chants that typically would make me cringe at wrestling shows, right? And so just an absolute banger of an atmosphere. So Scotland has a chance to make it to the round of 32. They have to either beat Brazil or tie Brazil, or if they outright lose, it has to be like a 1-0, 1-0 finish. Because at that case, they will they changed the World Cup, they added more teams, and so the round of 32 ends up getting like 8 third place in your group teams in it. And so Scotland has a pretty decent good chance. A win against Brazil more than likely locks them into the next round. A draw or a tie, they have a good chance. They just can't get absolutely destroyed and hurt their goal differential. A 1-0 loss would be okay, but that's about as bad as they can lose, to be honest. They can only lose by 1. And so that game is tomorrow. And that might be the most important game of the World Cup for me at this point. Just any game Scotland plays. Just because of the atmosphere they create and everything, that would just be wonderful. Like, there's even, they made such a big mark on Bostonians in Boston that Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, is talking about potentially, not this year, but maybe even as much early as next season, 2027, playing a game in Scotland. And let me tell you something, guys. If the Patriots are probably the number 1 team in Scotland, if they were playing a home game in Scotland, that atmosphere would be absolutely insane. it might be one that would make me get a passport and buy a plane ticket to go over to Scotland. Like, I have no desire to go to Scotland, to fly a plane across the Atlantic Ocean. But if you put a football there and it's my team in Scotland and there's going to be that hype-ass energy, yeah, bro, I might consider it. So that's we'll start with that. The next thing, we'll move to a wrestling topic real quick. Former WWE NXT wrestlers Duke Hudson and Andre Chase. I think they're going by on the indies now as Duke Hansen and Andre Chance. They did a podcast. They split it into 2 parts over the last 2 weeks. The most important part, realistically, is week 2, because that's where all the juicy stuff about Andre Chase University and the NXT stuff. The first part, the first 37 minutes, that there's a 37-minute episode, and then there's one that's like an hour and some, right? And really, the only one that really gets juicy is that second part, and that's what I want to talk about. Just some of the things that Andre Chase gave us some insight on. And I want to come off from this with this perspective that Andre Chase University, Chase U, was one of my favorite gimmicks on NXT. For a multitude of reasons. The first reason being, Andre Chase is from North Carolina. And so I always have this hometown, home state kind of I want that guy to succeed. The second thing is I've seen this dude live. I know he's a banger of a performer. In the indies, before he went to NXT, so some of the things he said in part 1 I want to address. For those who don't know who he is, on the indies before his NXT time, he went by the name of Harlem Bravado. And he had a brother. They were the Bravado brothers. I don't know what his brother's wrestling first name was, but they were the Bravado brothers. And I know he was Harlem Bravado. And it was him and his actual brother. And they essentially, they started doing some local stuff. I think they said early 2000, 7, I think is what they said. I could be wrong. But they eventually got to a point where Adam Pearce was named the head booker or trainer. I think it was Delirious that became the new trainer. So Bryan Danielson in 2007 was the trainer or the coach at the ROH school, and he was getting ready to leave. So the ROH school was we're kind of shutting down classes until we figure out who our next teacher is going to be. And when it finally opens up, I don't actually remember. I think it was Delirious who took over, but I could be wrong. When it finally opens up, they moved to Philadelphia to go to the ROH wrestling school. And the week they left to go move their life up to Philly, Gabe Spikolski gets fired. And a lot of people at that time, I wasn't really watching wrestling. I'm just going off of what they said and from other things. Gabe was really the big reason ROH was succeeding at this time, and his booking and everything. And so he gets released as head booker, and Adam Pearce gets put in as head booker. So they continue to do the ROH school. They start running live events, dark matches, eventually end up getting onto the ROH show. They were ROH tag team champions at some point. Some feuds with the Briscoes, but they were tag team wrestlers, right? So at the time, ROH had a thing with Noah, in Japan. So they went out to Japan and wrestled a little bit. Came back. I think they said this was 2012 that they had gone out to Japan. They were coming back, and then when they left for Japan, they never re-signed their contract. And when they came back, something along, I don't remember all the details, but something to where, like, Gabe had called him to go work for Evolve because he had started Evolve at that time. So then he started going and working with Evolve. His brother retired in 2016, so around that time he became a singles wrestler, and he was running British, I think they call them something schools, like tour schools or something like that. Essentially, he was wrestling like 85 matches a month. Like, you would work 2 matches a day, 6 days a week. You would have Friday off. And for wrestling, he even said, but on my off day on Friday, I would go work an indie show. And so he was wrestling, and it was not like 85. It was like 40 matches a month. I mean, if you think about it, there's 30 days in a month. You have 4 off days, so you're probably wrestling like 26 days a month. 2 matches a month at 26 days is... I'm not good at math, so I'm not even going to try. That's like 56. That's like 56 matches. And then if you do one live event on your off day, that's like 60 matches a month. And he said he would run that schedule during the summers and then move back to America, work Evolve. And he was on a basically a handshake deal with Gabe for Evolve. Wherever he came back from England, he would work Evolve. And Gabe was like, well, whenever you're here, we'll just book you on every show. And so that ended up happening all the way until COVID. And COVID hit, the pandemic hit. Now, I remember this because COVID hit. So I didn't know this at the time. But the last show of my local indie, North Carolina, what was known as PWX at the time. I don't think it exists anymore. They haven't run a show since COVID. But the last show they ran before the pandemic, it was their February show, which they call the X16 tournament. And it's essentially 16 guys. It's a 2-day tournament, so it's a Saturday and a Sunday show, and it's essentially the entire 4 hours a day is this tournament. 16 wrestlers, and they run through it, and eventually the winner gets like a title shot at their big show that they run in March, which I don't remember what they called it. But that was the show like 2 weeks before. If COVID would have held off for 2 more weeks, they would have been able to do this show. But anyway, X16 tournament happens, and Harlem Bravado, Andre Chase, wins the tournament. I had no idea he was running shows in England the summer before, running 60 matches a month. And then running Evolve as well at the same time. But so COVID happens, and he sort of stops wrestling. He said the one thing he liked about COVID was that he had to figure out who he was as a person, because he built his entire personality around, I'm a wrestler. He had to figure out who he was without wrestling. And he said that set him up for the place in life he is now, where, I mean, his 30 days is up now, so he's able to go wrestle indie shows again. And all of that. But none of that's important, right? None of that really is what I want to talk about. I just find it cool. But anyway, he won this X16 tournament. and was supposed to get a title opportunity, but COVID ended. And I remember that vividly because it just feels like we have an incomplete story with what I hope PWX eventually comes back around. But he tells this story on this second part, this longer part that I want to talk about, where COVID happens, he's not running any shows, he's trying to figure out who he is. Gabe essentially tells him, hey, just stay ready for whenever we're allowed to come back, to stay in shape and whatnot. He says one day he gets a random call from Gabe, like, hey, have you been staying ready? And then someone from WWE calls him, and I think he said it was Chris Canyon, calls him and was like, hey, we're going to invite you for a contract or a tryout. We're only bringing in 10 dudes. And we're bringing in 10 people. You're all going to get hired. We just need you to come and do this tryout. And essentially it was a don't fuck the tryout up and we'll sign you. He lets us know that it must have been a cursed tryout because they only signed 3 people. Andre Chase, Anthony Henry, which got cut real early in his WWE tenure, and then Blake Christian, which also got cut real early in his WWE tenure. Those were the only 3 that showed up. He never mentioned who else was there at the tryout. I would kind of like to know who it was, but he mentions that when Canyon first called him, the idea was really, we're going to bring you to this tryout to be a wrestler, but we more so want you to be a coach. And they really wanted him to just come in and be a coach at the PC. And this is one of the first areas where they start really hitting, like, there was definitely some favoritism. And I don't think they were complaining necessarily, but there definitely was a hint of, like, we probably as Chase U didn't get a fair enough shake. That there was definitely agendas backstage in booking. Goes back to what I said a couple weeks ago. It's really all about the booker, not the talent. That's why I always say 90% of wrestling is booking. There's a little bit you can have and say of if you can get yourself over a little bit organically, but if booking doesn't like you or if booking doesn't see you as a star, it doesn't matter how much of a star you actually are. If they don't see it, anyway, he was offered a lot of money to be a coach and a lot less money to be a wrestler, and he took the wrestling contract. And was essentially told, well, you're not going to be on TV. You're just going to run the lives and wrestle in the PC. We're never putting you on TV. And he said he was at a live show for NXT. At the time, they were traveling, right? They were traveling around Florida. And he was doing one of these live shows, and Shawn Michaels, who doesn't come to all of them, was just happened to be at this particular show. And asked him why he wasn't on TV. He had such a great match. He was wrestling one of the Creeds as a single star. And they had such a good match. Shawn Michaels was like, why are you not on TV? And he basically goes through the spiel of, well, they told me I'm not going to be on TV. And he's like, well, we're going to put you on TV. In the week, literally the next week, he was on 205 Live. Which is crazy, right? I mean, this dude's like 30 years old at the time. Anyway, so what I really wanted was some juicy stuff on Chase U. Like, what's some of the behind-the-scenes stuff? So, I want y'all to go and listen to it, so I'm not going to tell you everything. Some of the things I found interesting, though, was it feels like all of WWE's creative process was solely against Andre Chase and Chase U to get over. And I think as fans, we kind of figured that out as we were watching it. I remember when they separated them. separated Duke, or they started running the angle of potentially separating them, and everyone was like, "Why? This is the hottest thing in NXT." And yeah, and then I don't know. Here's what one of the big things that really stuck with me was how they dealt with being released. And Duke really, I think he had this perspective, because he went on to say something along the lines of like, Andre Chase University's being booked like a 4, but we're giving you 9s. And there's people here that are being booked as 9s, but can only deliver you 4s. So why are the people who are over-delivering not getting booked, but the people who are under-delivering being booked? And they one of the things I found interesting was this concept that WWE has. Like, they want to hire you young, get you trained within 4 or 5 years, hire you at like 19, 20, get you trained so that you're debuting by the time you're 25, 26. And they really have this set out. And so if you're a superstar on the roster and you're like 30 years old, you're probably not going to be pushed very hard. That there's this sort of movement towards the youth movement. And they really find people over like 30 to sort of be older, which I found entirely fascinating, because it's like really the only sport that feels that way, if you want to consider wrestling a sport. Like football, it feels like people are playing into older and older at select positions. The idea of being able to play into your 40s as a quarterback in the NFL is kind of normal now. And so this idea of like 30 is old now. That's kind of crazy to me. That booking direction. Highly recommend you guys listen to it. I didn't do enough justice to the to the discussion. I just listed some of the things I found interesting. But definitely, it's linked in the Discord. But you could also find it on Duke Hansen's. You just type in Duke Hansen Andre Chance, and you'll find it on YouTube. The next big thing that I want to talk about is I want to sit here and I want to do a ranker with you guys. I had this idea of like, there's like a big 5 sport in America now, in the U.S., right? We have soccer, we have hockey, we have baseball, we have basketball, and we have football, right? And I want to rank these. This is my ranking. I would love to hear y'all's rankings in the comments or in the Discord. How would you all rank the big 5 sports? So I'm going to start at the bottom. Number 5 to me is soccer. Now, how would you rank them on watchability, at like as if you're in the stadium, right? That's how I'm going to rank them, right? What the experience is like inside the stadium. I've been to all 5 of these events at some point in my life. I've been to a football game, a basketball game, a baseball game, a soccer game, and a hockey game. I've been to all of them. So we're ranking this from an in-the-arena perspective. And number 5 to me is soccer. It's not a lot's going on, I feel. A lot of the ball movement is kind of all over the place. There's not a lot of like big action plays. And when you start to get something that might be a little bit exciting, it only lasts for like 3 seconds. And then you have to wait for the other team to take the ball down the pitch. And maybe another 3-second excitement break. Especially if you're not like into the experience or into the sport, and maybe that's my issue, I just find soccer to necessarily be, I wouldn't say boring, but kind of slow and I have ADHD and a small attention span, so that type of environment just doesn't suit well with me. Number 4, I'm going to put baseball. Baseball's boring, bro. Baseball is boring. Can I just be honest with you? Baseball. First off, I have a problem with the fact that there's 162 games. No, because the more games you have, the less the regular season actually matters. You have like 2 months that really matter at the end of the season. That really because even after the All-Star break, after the trade deadline on July 31st, you still have 2 full months of games. You have like 40, 50 games, and a lot can change in those 2 months before the playoffs start. So baseball, but then overall, just the complete experience in the ballpark. Again, not a lot happens. It's kind of slow, even with the pitch clock now. It's just kind of slow, and oftentimes the games are in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the day, even night, and in the South with the humidity, bro, it's miserable. Yeah, just not a fun experience, in my opinion. I think it's a little bit better than soccer, but I'll put baseball at 4. From a pure experience perspective, I'm going to put football at number 3. Because, now, when to me, it's all about the excitement factor. And a lot of that comes in with, what's going on the field? Right? And with football, you get a play that generally lasts 3 to 8 seconds. And then you get somewhere between 20 to 40 seconds before the next play happens. Every 4 to 6 minutes, they take a 2.5, 3 minute commercial break. And then you start, right? And in most games, you don't have big, exciting plays. Now, you have some games that are big and exciting, and the crowd's on their feet. But a lot of football games that I've gone to, I feel like part of the experience I enjoy about football is being able to watch the full broadcast and hearing the announcers at least tell me a story. Because when you're in the arena and you don't get the broadcast, right, it kind of is not that exciting, right? Now, if I was doing the top 6 and adding auto racing, I would put NASCAR in front of football. A live NASCAR race is a grand experience. That might actually be number 2 on the list if I was doing the top 6. In fact, we're going to amend it. At number 3, we're going to put basketball. And what I like about basketball is that there's always some type of action going on, right? Something's always happening. You're not waiting a minute between plays to see things happen, right? If a team scores, you're grabbing the ball, you're taking it back up, you're setting up your play, you're running your play. You have, I forgot what the shot clock is in the NBA. Is it 24 seconds? So you have 24 seconds to shoot the ball. So you can't take your time. You shoot the ball, either you make it and you're playing defense down the court for another 20 seconds. And then, so you're getting 90 to 100 possessions a game per team. So there's always some type of action. So it's always exciting to go there. And then when you get into a big game with big players in big moments, it's an exciting atmosphere. Number 2, I would then put NASCAR. NASCAR is a fun experience to be at, just feeling 40 cars going 8,000 RPMs, just blowing by you at the start of the race. You smell the smoke, you smell the gasoline. It's a very fun experience, right? I recommend everyone go to at least one NASCAR race. Now, the problem with NASCAR, depending on the track you go to, some of the racing can be very boring. here at Charlotte, I've gone to probably about 10 races here in Charlotte Motor Speedway. Possibly going to go to the one in October because they're done with the road course, and we're doing the oval again in October. And I would rather sit at the oval in October and watch it than sit and watch the oval in May when it's blazing hot. This one's a night race. It's going to be cooler. Definitely considering it. But I've been to a lot of races here. Most of them really become quite in terms of like I'm trying to speak to a non-NASCAR audience in NASCAR terms, but essentially what happens is if there's not a lot of wrecks, which there don't tend to be at Charlotte, then the field can get quite spread out, and there's not a lot of passing for positions. And it can sort of just become what we call a parade, where there's just single file following each other. And to some that's entertaining, to some it's not. I think NASCAR, though, as an overall experience, is just really fun to go to. But that leaves as the number one sport I believe in entertainment value is hockey. I think if there's any sporting event you need to go to, I would go to all 6 of these. But I would recommend hockey, especially playoff hockey, as an experience to go to. Just absolutely the funnest time in my life. I wasn't even watching the NHL. I was watching the minor leagues here in Charlotte. We have a minor league team. And I had bought season tickets for the playoffs. We were probably the best team in the league this year. And I had front row glass seats. I was on the glass. I could bang the glass right next to the home team bench. Right? So I could talk with players if I wanted to. Became real close for the few games that I was there with Trevor Carrick. Me and him he would always get off the ice as they were swapping lines. He would get off the ice. He would sit on the bench, and I would hit the glass. We're like, good shift out there. Or I would mess with him. Sometimes he'll make a mistake or whatever. Like, bro, you got to do better, right? I was in the corner where the mascot would like to be at all the time. So me and the mascot would see me, and he would come sit next to me for, 2 or 3 minutes. It was just the greatest experience, right? Was able to ride the Zamboni at one of these games. For those who don't know, the Zamboni is the thing in between periods that they drive over the ice to sort of refrost it, or whatnot to sort of smooth it out for the next period. And they take they take fans on it as they do it, as sort of like a fan experience. And I was able to do that. That was fun. Because you're sort of like a representative for the team and the game I went, we were dominating. So I was out there going around. They said my name, and I was like, come on, let's go Checkers, right? And just pumping up the crowd. One of my friends was actually in the crowd, and he saw me, and he screamed my name. So every time I would come around, because you would do like 7 laps around the ice to get the whole thing done. And every time I would come around where he was sitting, he would stand up, and I would point at him or whatever, right? Just a fun experience. Hockey is a fun experience, a fun sport to watch. You're watching grown men run into each other. It's fast-paced action. Just watching these people, skate like 50, 60 miles an hour, and some of them are just colliding into other human beings doing the same thing. Like running into brick walls, essentially. That's such a great experience. And, playoff hockey's the best. There's a lot of things I wouldn't spend 8 hours doing. I went and sat in a playoff hockey game. It went 8 overtimes. We were in the arena. I got to the arena at 6 p.m., did not leave the arena until 1 a.m. the next morning, had to go to work at 8 o'clock. And I live 45 minutes away from the arena. I didn't get home till like 3. And I was going to do it all over again the next day. Right? So I went to work, was going to get off at 4, go back to the arena at 5 or 6. Right? And do it again the next day. Like, playoff hockey was great. We ended up losing that long-ass game, though. Which was always a down, losing games is not fun. But winning games, especially playoff games, fantastic. I remember the year that my local minor league team won the cup, the Calder Cup. And I didn't go to the game they won it in, but I was at the game before they won it at. It was a different year. And they had scored a goal. Again, I was in the same seats. I had scored a goal, or they had scored a goal, and they came to celebrate. And their social media team snapped the picture, and there I was just in the picture celebrating with the team. I got to see if I can go find that picture. But yeah, hockey's, in my opinion, the best sport to watch live. The next thing I want to talk about is, I mentioned last week in the question of the week last Tuesday, like, is this sort of like Pride Night thing, Pride Month thing, kind of over in the big culture? And we kind of mentioned the San Francisco Giants pitcher situation, and I want to address it again here for a different reason. So after last week, right, and I mentioned it, but I think the next day after, a senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, sent a letter to the MLB essentially saying, hey, sending a warning to these players is religious discrimination. You better watch out. I'm on one of the boards that controls whether or not you get your antitrust certification for you to do business in MLB, so be careful with what you do. And so the MLB responded back a few days later with a note. I'm going to read you the note that Manfred, the commissioner of the MLB, sent back to Josh Hawley. And I want to talk about it from, again, I want to address my team. I always say this. I never address the other team because I don't care about how the other team plays ball, right? I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian, right? We all know this. I've talked about it before, a lot, right? So I don't care how the non-Christians and how the liberals and how the progressives play ball. I know how they play ball, and it's different than me. I can't be shocked. Where I really have an issue, I listened to a podcast today. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, right? Which is why me listening to Andre and Duke is kind of shocking, right? Because I don't listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts, especially like from the business, from people who are in the business. But I don't listen to a lot of religion or politics podcasts either, because a lot of it, especially in the political spectrum, is intentionally or not propaganda. They're trying to push an agenda. A lot of podcasts are trying to push either to get you to believe a certain agenda, something like a Candace Owens or a Tucker Carlson. I don't really I don't know the left-wing podcast. I'm just going to use the right-wingers. So like a Tucker Carlson or a Candace Owens or a Megyn Kelly, right? They are, one, they're all on the same side, trying to push the more anti-Israel type agenda. I think they're all being paid by Qatar to push this agenda, just me personally. But they're all trying to get clicks, get views, push messages, and really just brainwash people into believing these agendas. There's definitely a hidden agenda underneath everything they push and what they talk about and what they don't talk about, right? But then on the other side, on the right, you also have like the Daily Wires, like Ben Shapiro, who is definitely pushing an agenda, or Steven Crowder, as much as I like him, or Alex Jones, and everyone's trying to get clicks. Everyone's trying to sell merch. Everyone's trying to sell sponsorships, because that's how you survive in this area, in this marketplace, right? I wouldn't be dumb to like if I could get sponsorship on this show, that would pay me money to do this on a day-to-day basis, don't. Now, I would be clear. I'll sell your merchandise and I'll do what needs to be said to keep you as a sponsor up to a certain point. I'm not going to sell out and take money from Qatar to push Islam on, to make Islam palatable to Christians, like I think Tucker's trying to do. Excuse me. I wouldn't do that, right? But I also, like on the MAGA side, right? Tucker's kind of the anti-MAGA side. On the MAGA side, you have your same people. The guy I listen to, his name's Steve Deace. He's no different. I know he's got to pay the bills. He's got to pay his staff. He's got to, right? And so he was talking about this today on his episode. And the way he talked about it made it feel like the actions of these 4 pitchers and then what Josh Hawley did to step in to send the letter, that it's some political win for the right, for Christians, that some big thing happened. And this letter, they backed down. They didn't find the guys. They said there would be no punishment. Look at what happens, and this was literally his statement. Look at what happens when men act. And while I agree with the sentiment that we have a lot of low-T, passive men in our culture, and that's why we're at a position where we're at, I agree with that opinion. I don't think the actions of these 4 men, as awesome as they were, and I 100% applaud them for their action. I'm not going to take anything against them. What they did was, I think, very admirable. But I don't think the response from the MLB is as much of a win as these conservative guys. Josh Hawley even was doing a media tour over the last few days trying to parade this as a win. I don't think it's as much as a win as we're trying to parade it. And I told you guys, I live by 3 things. I'm going to be real, I'm going to be raw, I'm going to be relevant. I'm just going to be raw with you, right? Josh Hawley's trying to push this as a win because that gets him votes, it gets him reelected, and makes it feel like conservatives are taking back culture. But I want to address the actual facts of the situation. So first off, the players themselves in the aftermath, Josh Hawley sends this, the DOJ says they're going to look into discrimination, and the players themselves come out and say, I don't feel like it's discrimination what they did to us. And then we get this note, and I'm going to read the note. I'm going to read the entire thing because I'm all about facts. What are the facts of this? What did the MLB actually do? I don't think the MLB backed down. In fact, the MLB stood on business. Josh Hawley, the senator, sends a note saying, hey, watch out, you're discriminating. And this was Rob Manfred, the worst sports commissioner of current commissioners, and that's saying something because I don't like Goodell either. But this was his response. Dated June 19th. He says, Dear Senator Hawley, we are in receipt of your letter dated June 16th, 2026. The letter raises 2 distinct issues, and we will address each of them. First, your letter asserts that by warning 3 San Francisco Giants players that they are not permitted to alter their cap. So first thing I want to talk about is 4 players did something, only 3 were warned. And I want to talk about the one that wasn't warned and why he wasn't warned, okay? And they actually explained it in this letter here in a minute. So I want to address the 4 players. So I have to write this down because I tend to forget. Sam Hentges, I think is how you say his last name. Ryan Walker, JT Brubaker, and Landon Roop. Now there's a couple things I want to talk about them individually as players, as I don't think this is much of a win. But let's just continue reading, right? So first off, 3 players. I think it was Hentges who didn't alter the cap. He just didn't wear the pride cap. He just wore the normal San Francisco. He wasn't warned. And there's a reason why he wasn't warned. I want to get to that. There's a reason why, and they address it in the letter. right? So he says, first, your letter asserts that by warning 3 San Francisco Giant players that they are not permitted to alter their cap, that the MLB has discriminated against players. The MLB takes discrimination against its players or in any form related to the league very seriously. So what are their response? Well, we take these such claims seriously, but now listen to what they say in response. As you reference in your letter, the MLB has a policy negotiated with the Major League Baseball Players Association that states, quote, a player may not attach, affix, embroider, or otherwise display nicknames or messages on apparel or playing equipment. What did they just say? We didn't warn them because of discrimination. We warned them because they broke policy. And this is one of my big issues. As a Christian, I notice so often Christians look for persecution. They want to say they're hating on us. Guys, there's actual persecution going on in this world to Christians. This is not it. There's a policy. You can't alter your uniform. Now, I admire what they did, and I think there are some policies that are meant to be broken. But understanding there's going to be consequences. They broke a policy. They got warned. That's what the MLB's defense is. They broke a policy. We warned them against such breaking of policy, but there was never going to be fines. There was never going to be suspensions. There was never going to be punishments. This was just a warning, right? And to the fact that these players came out and said we weren't discriminated against. The policy is enforced without regard to the substance of the messaging. Essentially, their defense is it doesn't matter what it is. Now, this is where I would question them and push back against this. Because my question then is, well, if the player was Muslim and posted a Quran verse on his hat that was anti-Pride Night, would you warn him? Would this be an issue? If a black player during spring training or on Jackie Robinson Day, if a black player puts like Black Lives Matter on his hat, would you question them? Because I don't think they will actually police this. And that's where I believe the discrimination is. But until we see that happen, there's no discrimination, in my opinion. I'm just going to be honest. I don't see this as a discrimination case. You can't. I don't think you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was discriminatory. The MLB is essentially just saying we're just doing our job according to our policy. Now, I would argue that some policies are meant to be broken, but. Listen, let's continue reading, right? The rationale for the policy is that the league does not desire for its players to become messengers for political or societal issues while in uniform, while playing baseball games, because many messages have the potential to offend some segment of our fan bases. This is laughable to me because obviously Pride Night is not some... The very idea of allowing a Pride Night jersey is okay, but a player altering that jersey is not, because messaging could be offensive. But what about the fact that Pride Night might be offensive to some of your audience? You see, that is where, again, we have to push back against some of this. We can't just say, hooray, they backed down, because they didn't back down, by the way. We can't just let them get away with this rationale. Essentially, they pushed this on the Giants, and I'm going to show you that. MLB's policy must be uniformly enforced, regardless of the message, in order for it to survive legal challenge, which means prohibiting both the positive message and the negative message. By warning the Giants players that they may not include Bible verses on their cap in the future, MLB was not discriminating or chastising those players based on their religious beliefs. Rather, the MLB was enforcing with only an oral warning a long-standing collectively bargained rule that keeps uniforms clean and avoids controversy. The rule has been similarly applied to a variety of messages, some as innocuous as messages to a player's mother or honoring a deceased friend. Essentially saying, we don't even allow them to write on their uniforms to honor their mom who died, or they have a friend who passed. We won't even let them do that. Right? Again, their legal argument stands. We're just following policy. They then go on to say, second, before I turn to the Giants issue, I will provide you with some background on commemoration or celebration days that every MLB club includes on their schedule. At the league level, MLB has 12 league-wide events each year in which the uniform or hat is altered to commemorate that day, in which all clubs must participate. Those 12 events are Mother's Day, Father's Day, Armed Force Weekend, the Play Ball Weekend, Memorial Day, Lou Gehrig Day, Independence Day, Hall of Fame Weekend, Childhood Cancer Awareness Day, 9/11, Jackie Robinson Day, and Roberto Clemente Day. For these days, players must wear special uniforms and hats, and for some of these days, the uniform regulations contained in the CBA, Collective Bargaining Agreement, are relaxed per agreement with the union. We are unaware of any significant complaints from fans or players regarding these celebratory days, nor should you on any of those days listed as required days to wear altered jerseys. He continues, in addition, clubs at their discretion are permitted to include other celebratory or commemorative days in their schedule. For example, majority of our clubs host faith or religious related games, including 4 clubs that have scheduled 3 such games this season. Games celebrating different ethnicities or nationalities that are part of their communities, including, for example, games celebrating Black, Hispanic, Asian, European, Caribbean, or Canadian heritage. For example, I'm sure the Giants probably have a Hispanic Heritage Month game, right? Would make sense. That's part of their community of fans, right? Games honoring first responders and games honoring local military veterans. MLB does not regulate these events, but also does not permit clubs or players to utilize special uniforms or equipment for such games or alter the uniform or equipment. We understand that some players or other on-field personnel have not been comfortable wearing the pride emblem on their uniform based on their religious beliefs. As a league, we agree with the principle that players or other club employees at their place of work should not be compelled to participate in a celebratory event, particularly by wearing something on their person, if such participation would violate their sincere religious belief or values. As a result, to avoid putting players or others in an uncomfortable position, beginning in 2023, we adopted a policy of not permitting clubs to utilize special uniforms, hats, or equipment in their celebration days, except under very narrow circumstances. Patches honoring deceased members of the baseball community, commemorating baseball milestones, or things of that nature. In 2023, the Dodgers and the Giants requested their use of the pride emblem on their uniforms on a Pride Night to be grandfathered. Los Angeles and San Francisco are home to some of the largest LGBTQ communities in the United States, and those clubs desire to show their appreciation and support for those communities that have supported their clubs throughout the year. The MLB agreed to allow them to utilize the hats and uniforms with the emblems, provided that no player or uniform staff would be required to wear them. And that team would speak to the players to make sure they were comfortable with the apparel. Since 2023, the Dodgers and Giants have operated under this grandfathered exception. Unfortunately, this year the Giants' communication with players was inadequate and not clear. Some players apparently did not understand that they had the option to wear the normal uniform and elected to add messages to their hats bearing the Pride logo as a result. The Giants players were allowed to wear the hats with the biblical references for the entire game. After the game, had concluded, my office issued a routine oral warning about the uniform policy violation. Unfortunately, it was issued before we were aware of the Giants' lapse in communication. The players were neither fined nor disciplined, nor will they ever be. In closing, MLB believes in the right of our players and fans to express their religious beliefs and at the same time support the communities in the country that are fans of the clubs, including the LGBTQ community. We believe that a policy permitting our clubs to celebrate or honor segments of its fan base, yet does not require players or other on-field personnel to directly participate in the celebration in ways that make them uncomfortable, strikes the right balance. We also believe that it is critical to maintain our policy prohibiting uniform alterations of any type, no matter how positive, to avoid the problems associated with censoring some messages but not others. We will continue to consult with our players and clubs to ensure that our policies are developed and executed in a manner that respects the diversity and values and beliefs of the people who play baseball professionally and the tens of millions who love the game. Sincerely, Robert D. Manfred Jr. Now, as a statement, other than the areas I pointed out, I think where my biggest point back would be is we don't agree with alterations because it could offend some of the user. Now, where I think they can overcome that is where they say, here's what happened. The MLB stood on business. What we did was just enforce our policy. If you have an issue, you have an issue with the Giants. They threw the Giants under the bus, and they should have. Because understand what happened here. Again, I think this is just a case of Christians trying to seek persecution where there was none. There is no requirement except for the Dodgers and the Giants to have a Pride night. Now, they choose to do it, and they choose. I don't think a lot of teams run Pride jerseys in the MLB. Most of them most of them recognize the month in like social media posts. The Rangers were the only team not to this year. But I think the only two teams that are grandfathered in to use the rainbow logos are the Giants and the Dodgers. It is up to them, the Giants and the Dodgers, to communicate and understand that the grandfathering in only is allowed as long as there is the option to not wear it. Which is why I mentioned there was 4 players who chose to do some sort of action. Which is why only 3 of them got violations. And Hentages did not. Because he chose to just wear the normal Giants logo on his hat. And not the Pride logo. I think we made a bigger story out of this than it should have been. I applaud the 4 gentlemen for standing up for their faith. But where I really get annoyed is when the right-wingers, when Christians, when conservatives try to play identity politics like the left does. And they try to play victim. These 3 are not victims because they were warned against uniform policy. If you went to work and you were not in uniform or you altered your uniform in some case that is against the rules, you should expect to be warned about it. And that's what this was. This was, when I worked restaurants, we had a written 1, a written 2, a written 3, and then, written 1, or let me pause back. We had a verbal 1, a verbal 2, then you got written 1. Verbal 3, or what we call document of discussion. So when we worked at Zaxby's, you got the first offense was a document of discussion. Second, which is essentially that we pulled you aside, hey, you can't do this. Let's get better at actually following policy. Sign this piece of paper to say that we had this conversation. It's just a warning, though. You're not, in trouble. This doesn't count as, a write-up, right? It's just, hey, we had this conversation. So we had 2 of those. The third time we have to address the issues, your written 1. And then in between written 1 and written 2 is another document of discussion. In between written 2 and written 3 is a document of discussion. And then after written 3, the next offense is termination. So there's 7 pieces of paper, essentially, that need to get signed before you get fired from Zaxby's, at least when I worked there. And we did that for legal reasons to prove that you were breaking policy, right? Essentially what happened was where these guys were issued a verbal warning, hey man, what you did was against policy, here's the policy, please don't do that again. That's all that happened. They were never going to be fined. They were not persecuted for their Christian beliefs. We made a bigger story than it should have been. And what's really annoying to me is Christians and conservatives, more specifically conservatives, trying to make this a win as if, oh, look at the actions of these 3 men. Guys, let me tell you what the result of this is going to be. All 4 of these players are struggling right now on a team that's struggling right now. What tends to happen with teams like the Giants who struggle is the turnover of players tends to be high. The idea being if we can just get new players, maybe we could do better. All 4 of these players are on 1-year deals, and I'm more than certain all 4 of these players will not be San Francisco Giants at the end of the season. When December comes around and it's free agency, none of them, I believe, will be re-signed. Just going to be honest with you. Nothing changes here. A policy doesn't change. One, I don't think a policy needs to be changed. I think the policy is actually quite fair. You can't alter your jerseys. The only thing I would question the MLB about is I don't know how much I trust them to say that they would police this universally without partiality. I think there are certain people, and I gave you some instances. I think there are certain cases they would allow alterations without warning. But I don't know. I don't know, and I can't say for certain. I have to take their word for it until those situations come about. Right? But I'm just... This isn't... Guys, if this is persecution to you, what do I tell... I'm speaking to my team. Right? I know I have an audience who isn't Christian that may think I'm just going on a rant. But I'm speaking to my team for a minute. If this is persecution, what do I tell the Christians in the underground churches in hyper-Muslim areas or in Indonesia, which is mostly a Muslim country, even though it's in Asia? I know that's crazy, right? What do I tell the Christians in these highly persecuted areas in Africa and the Middle East and Asia, like Indonesia? What do I tell these Christians who are just for possessing a page of the Bible could be put to death? What do I tell the Christians in Nigeria who the Muslims attack almost on a monthly basis, and people are slaughtered in front of their families, whole tribes are wiped out and just thrown in the human pit, like in pits of human graves, mass graves? That's persecution, guys. I'm just so tired of this. Yes, there's a culture war that Christians need to participate. Yes, Christian men need to act more. Absolutely. But this is nothing changed. Nothing about the MLB's policy changed. Nothing about how the MLB handles this changed. Nothing got There's no victory here because there was nothing to get victory over. Nothing changed in this situation. And I'm just going to be completely honest, as a Christian, and as someone who admires what these 4 men said and did, they broke the rules. You had an opt-out. You didn't have to wear it to begin with. Now, if the team didn't explain that to you correctly, that's on the team. But can we not blame the whole league? Because this is not a league thing. The league didn't mandate this. I think we're taking our fight to the wrong area. There's no victory here. The MLB stood on business. They literally claim they did not discriminate. And we're claiming victory like we won some grand battle. Guys, nothing happened. No bullets were shot. We pushed a letter to them. They sent one back saying, yeah, we stand on business. And we're going to claim that as a victory? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't see any victory. Like, we didn't take any ground back for the Christian, right? And a lot of these people who promote this, that this is the victory, are trying to promote this like we must Christianize America. And I'm on that team, partially. In that I believe America is a Christian nation and should be governed by Christian rules. But I also understand the idea that this wasn't like we have to be very honest with the facts of the case. And I don't think a lot of people, the person, Steve Dace, who I listened to, he didn't even know the names of the players. He didn't even know how many players it was. A lot of these people just see headlines and react to headlines. And I refuse to do that. I did a lot of research looking up who the players were, what their contracts were, just to see if there was any long-term. Ryan Walker, who's the closer, he's a reliever, but he, at least in MLB 25, because I'm the Giants in that season. In MLB 25, he's the closer, and I got him pretty damn good right now. 17 saves on 17 opportunities for my Giants in my season mode. But Ryan Walker's been sent down like 4 times to AAA. Just got caught up like less than a month ago. He's 30. He's struggling. He's been sent down to AAA. He doesn't have much of a career left in him, right? None of these pitchers are going to be Giants next season. I don't know what we won here. Could someone tell me what victory was gained here? Because I don't think there was one. All right. Now that we talked about that, let's do the big sections here with wrestling. I want to do something real quick. I'll be honest. Great American Bash, when we predict, so there's 2 PLEs for WWE this weekend. We have Night of Champions. It used to be Clash of Champions, but it's now Night of Champions. That's on Saturday. Great American Bash is on Sunday. Also on Sunday is Slammiversary and Forbidden Door. But I want to check something for Great American Bash. I purposely waited to record this a little bit later. And purposely waited. Now, I have a question for Shawn Michaels. This is Great American Bash. And the 4th of July is literally on a Saturday. We couldn't do this 1 week later and do Great American Bash on the 4th of July. I'm just saying. I know WWE's wanting to do an event on the White House lawn. You literally could have called them and said, hey, can we just put a ring where the Octagon was and do Great American Bash on the 4th of July from the White House? But I've been taking so long because there was one match that a result of tonight's NXT, and I wanted to see if that match is done yet. It doesn't look like it. It's going to be the main event, isn't it? All right, we're just going to have to proceed with it. Hopefully by the time I get there, this match will be determined. Okay, so it just started. I just pulled up X. The match that I'm looking for just started. So I'm going to try to take my time through Night of Champions, and maybe by the time I get to that match, it'll be done. All right. Night of Champions, Saturday night. 6-match card, guys. I don't know the last time we had a 6-match card that wasn't WrestleMania. All right, so for the first 2 matches of the night are going to be live on ESPN, and they're the men's and women's, like tournament thing. Winner gets a opportunity at the championship. Oba Femi versus Jey Uso. Now, both very interesting. Assuming Oba win, and the match will be at SummerSlam. Guys, I'm sticking to my guts here. Brock Lesnar is costing Oba Femi this match. I'm sticking to my guts here. Brock Lesnar is costing Oba Femi the match. Jey Uso is winning this match. Now, creates an interesting story because then it would be it would be Jey versus Roman, I believe. Unless Jey wants to go after Cody or whoever wins. Right? Unless he wants to go after that title, I don't see that happening. So we would get Jey versus Roman. That's a very interesting situation. Yeah, but I'm sticking to that. I'm sticking to Oba is going to be interfered against by Brock. I could even see a situation where that, because this is a no DQ match, it could end in a no finish. Oba goes and gets Brock, and Roman finds another opponent somehow that's not. I think that's the way they save face here. Still get Oba versus Brock one more time, where Oba beats Brock to retire him. Jey doesn't have to I don't understand why we wouldn't have gone the route of Javon Evans beating Jey Uso, having Oba attacked by Brock, which helps Javon win. So Javon gets a title opportunity against Roman at SummerSlam, the biggest match of his career, where Javon could just almost beat Roman. And then I think there's a story you could tell with Javon Evans. It's a little weird with the idea of Jey. So maybe it's a DQ finish. I don't know. All I know is my prediction is Oba is going to get beat up by Brock Lesnar. Whether that means Jey wins and is number one contender for SummerSlam or not, I have no idea. I don't know how that all plays out. But I think we're getting Oba versus Brock at SummerSlam for the third time, and we're going to end the trilogy there with Oba winning, beating Brock Lesnar, retiring Brock Lesnar, and his hometown. We get Io Sky versus Liv Morgan, which also is very interesting because Liv Morgan is already the champion. My assumption is if Liv wins, then she gets to pick her opponent. That's my assumption. But this gets even more interesting because apparently she got hurt at a live event off a miss-up by Sol Ruka. I'm not getting into that drama because I don't know anything that's going on about it. Don't care. But apparently she's hurt. I don't know. I see story written right in this, though. I see Io Sky winning this and choosing to face Rhea Ripley. And we're going to get Io versus Rhea, her former best friend. That's where I think we're going. That is where, because I don't think they go Io versus Liv to have Io win just for Io to face Liv again. I think we're going Io versus Rhea. I genuinely believe that's where we're headed with this. But isn't Rhea Ripley hurt too? That's a whole crazy situation as well. Now that I'm thinking about it, both your champions are hurt. You might be hurt for real. Oh, I don't know why I just thought of this. I'm gonna go back real quick while I'm looking this up about Rhea Ripley, because my fingers are fat, and instead of Rhea, I type Thea. Back to the conversation from Duke and Andre from Chase U, and they feel there's a little bit of favoritism that keeps Thea from getting an opportunity. 100% agree with them. There's no reason Thea hasn't gotten a severe she's too good to still be mid-card, guys. 100% agree with them. But let's go back to Rhea. I just want to see, is she hurt? That's all I care about. Sideline with a knee injury. Yeah, I don't know how long this knee injury is gonna last her, but we're assuming she's gonna be champion at SummerSlam. So I'm gonna go with that. I think Io wins and it goes to choose Rhea Ripley. We have a U.S. title match between Trick Williams and Ricky Saints. I could see this going either way. It's the Saudi crowd. I think they're going to be all in for Trick, I'm going to be honest. I'm picking Trick Williams. I'm picking Trick Williams here. Seth versus Braun Breaker in a steel cage match. I'm going to go Braun Breaker. I don't know why. Part of me thinks maybe Bronson Reed shows back up. Because the idea of a steel cage is I'm assuming so the Vision doesn't get in the ring, right? Well, you have someone like Bronson Reed show up, coming back from injury. And I hope that the idea is not to have him do a stupid spot off the top of the damn cage. But I could see him, like, them building him as this giant monster who, like, rips the cage door off and gets in, right? I could see them doing that. I'm going to pick Braun Breaker to win this. Cody versus Gunther versus Sami Zayn for the World Championship or the Universal Championship, whatever the WWE Championship, whatever the fuck we're calling it these days. First off, the fact that Sami Zayn gets a title match is infuriating. I just got to say that. And the fact that it's in Saudi really scares me because, guys, this hurts my feelings to say this. My official prediction is Sami Zayn's losing. This is all going to wrap up at WrestleMania, guys. I'm telling you how this is booked, right? So we had Royal Rumble in Saudi. Sami loses. Doesn't win the Rumble. Can't go to Mania. Didn't get the big Saudi pop. He couldn't get the job done. We now have another show in Saudi where he has a world title opportunity. And he's going to be the one to take the pin. I think Cody retains. But you can't have Gunther lose. So you insert Sami for two reasons. One, to take the pin. Two, long-term storytelling. Second PLE. The next time we're in Saudi's WrestleMania, I saw the report that Obafemi and Sami Zayn are the two favorites to win the Men's Royal Rumble in 2027. Not my favorites. There is no Obafemi in those odds. Sami Zayn is winning the Royal Rumble in 2027. I'm just putting it in your head. In June of 2026, in 6 months, Sami Zayn will be the number one contender for WrestleMania in Saudi, where he will win the championship. I think that is when he finally beats Cody Rhodes for the championship. I think it will be Cody versus Sami for the title. WrestleMania 43 in Saudi, 2027. I'm booking it right now. We're starting that long-term feud right now. That's what I'm booking for next Mania. Sami's not winning now. He's going to win the title at WrestleMania. I think Oba's going to win Money in the Bank, which will allow him to cash in. And I think either he fights Roman or he beats Roman on the road to Mania so Roman can get The Rock. But that's the only way I don't see Roman walking in the Mania as champion. So I think our two men's title matches will be Obafemi versus Roman Reigns, where Oba will win the title. And then Sami Zayn versus Cody Rhodes, where Sami will win the title. I genuinely do believe that's what we're going to see at next year's Mania. And then Jade versus Tiffany Stratton for the U.S. or the women's U.S. title. Now, crazy. The last two world champions on the SmackDown side lose their title. Tiffany loses to Jade, goes to the mid-card. Jade loses to Rhea, goes to the mid-card. Can we not keep them in the main event? I mean, Rhea's injured at this point. Why are they mid-card champ in the mid-card title? Why aren't we promoting mid-card women? I don't get the booking here, guys. I don't get it. I don't at all. I'm gonna pick Tiffany no. I'm gonna pick Jade Cargill. I think Tiffany's got to be available if Rhea's hurt. Tiffany's got to be the one you put up there to be the world champion. Because I could see like an Io versus Tiffany definitely happening. If Rhea's hurt and has to vacate the title. I went over that way too quickly. Okay, cool. Match is over. And it's the result I thought it was going to be. I'm going to spoil NXT if you didn't watch it. Sorry. Alright, so let's cover Great American Bash, which I think is going to be the better show this weekend. For free on the CW, I think it's more accessible in my opinion. For free, I say that again, for free on the CW, you can watch a PLE for NXT. Kendall Gray takes on Lola Vice for the NXT Women's Championship. Me personally, I think this is the main event. It better be the main event. It's the best match on the card. And I think, in front of that PC crowd, I hate that this is at the Performance Center and not on TV. Your first live PLE on the CW, and you're doing it from your normal arena. This doesn't seem very special to me. But Lola versus Kendall, I'm picking Kendall Gray. I am picking Kendall. I'm a Kendall fan all day through. Kendall Gray is winning. Tony D'Angelo defends the NXT World Championship against Naraku in a match I could give two absolute cares about. I don't give any cares about this match. I'm picking Naraku, though I could see this being ending in a DQ, no finish. Is Cam Kendrick's going to get involved? Is Mason Rook going to get involved? What's going to happen here, bruh? I see some kind of chaos coming out of this match. I do. So, if it doesn't end in a DQ, which I think is the more logical finish, I'm going to pick Naraku to win. Tony D has always felt very transitional champion to me. And so, but Naraku also feels transitional champion to me as well. Miles Bourne versus Tavian Height for the Men's North American Championship. I'm going to say Miles Bourne retains. I don't know if they're... The only way I could see him losing is if they take the title off of him. And I don't see... Or losing if they... And they take the title off of him is to put him on the main roster. And I just don't see that happening. See, this is why I always check. I'm glad I checked. I'm glad we got this. There's a 6-match added to this card as well. I was just thinking about this title. This is the Women's North American Championship. Tatum's getting her rematch. Zarya versus Tatum. This is Tatum's goodbye, officially. Zarya's going to retain her title. Tatum's going to get her applause as she leaves the PC. And she's going to get caught up as well, I think. So we'll just put that there. Ren Sinclair. And this is where the spoiler comes in. I'm going to say it again. Spoiler. Say it one more time. Spoiler. Because tonight on NXT, we figure out Ren Sinclair's opponent. Is it Ariana Grace? or is it Izzy Dame? And it ends up being, I predicted and I wanted Ariana Grace, and that's exactly who it is. Ren Sinclair versus Ariana Grace for the Women's Speed Championship. 5-minute match. Guys, Kendall's winning hers. I'm pretty sure Kendall said she's not going to be in the corner of Ren. Ren Sinclair's losing her title. Ariana Grace will be your Women's Speed Champion. I'm going to predict that. And then the final match, Shaquan Sugar versus Dion Lennox. I told you at the beginning when I was talking about Andre Chase, I got the hometown partiality. I choose people who are from North Carolina because that's where I am. Same thing going on here. Look, I like Dion Lennox, but Shaquan Sugar, I know he's from D.C., but he used to live in NC, and I saw him on the NC indie scene. Shaquan Sugars is my dude. I wish he had a better name. He went by Lucky Ali on the indies. I don't know why we couldn't change that around somehow or use something like that. Shaquan Sugars just feels kind of weird. But I'm picking him, Shaquan, to win this match. So there's Great American Bash. That's Night of Champions predicted as well. So we're going to go. I'm going to save question of the week for Fridays. And I kind of already asked it with how would you rank. If I would have done this differently, I would have had the question of the week and ended the show with rank of the big 5 sports teams. Or big 6 ended up being sports events to watch live. That's sort of the question of the week. But we're going to end with the Smash Team of the Week. And I came across this that I didn't know existed. Pro Women's Softball. And so I went through their entire roster of all the teams. I didn't know this existed before this weekend. I didn't know pro softball existed. I just knew college. And I always felt weird trying to think, college players. These are practically the same age as them, though. Most of them just graduated or just got drafted in this league. But this is the Smash Team of the Week, Pro Softball Edition. I don't know nothing about these players. Don't know anything about them. Just going to base this off of their profile picture on the league website. I didn't do any extra research. We're going to start with player Sis Bates. We're going to move on. Most of these are pitchers, by the way. I realized I have a thing for pitchers. I don't know what it is. Next one, Alyssa Denham. Next on this team is Amber Pfizer. And it could be Fisher, and I could have typed it wrong. But we're going to go with Pfizer, F-I-S-E-R. The only one I know of is the pitcher from the team that I was watching when I was ranking these. Sam Landry. Great pitcher, by the way. From a pitching standpoint. She went like a full game, like 120 pitches. Had only let up one hit. No runs. Bro, she great. That's a great stat line. Next on the list, Mariah Lopez, and then our 6-man or 6-woman this week. And it was really hard because I'm just going to be honest. Picking 6 women that were attractive in this league to me. Very difficult. Bree Ellis. Welcome to the Smash Team of the Week. If you like softball, go check out women's softball. I don't even know the name of the league, to be honest with you. It's like the AUSL. I think it's like America United or America Unlimited Softball League or something like AUSL. I think it's what it's called. Go check it out. Let me know what y'all think. Thank y'all for listening. Hope you had a great time on this episode. I'm We Too Deep. Until next time, I will see you on the next episode.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. Whether it's NXT or NFL time, going in the ropes and 4th and deep, slapping meat community every Tuesday. Help immunity, every Tuesday.